Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scott Selections here for Monday, March 2nd. Before getting into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. We ended up picking up a play that I lost with the Kings minus 7.5 as they took on the Detroit Pistons. They were down 15 after one. Not really sure how that happened. They were shooting 26% in the first quarter, but then they woke up. Everything seemed fine. They were up I believe it was 6 going into the fourth, and they were up double digits with about 3 minutes to go. However, they got outscored by 6 in the last 3 minutes, or last 2:40. I don't exactly remember what the time was, but they ended up winning only by 6. So it's a bit unfortunate if you're laying 7.5 and you have a double-digit lead with less than 3 minutes left and you're unable to cash. That's a little bit annoying, but either or, it happens, and we'll look for a bounce-back winner today. Other than that, though, the leans weren't that great either. Unfortunately, as the Clippers didn't cover, we recommended a live bet over in the Mavericks and Timberwolves game after a slow first quarter. He had only 52 in the first quarter. The line definitely dropped about 7 points, but unfortunately, since Doncic was out of the lineup, the game ended up flying under the posted total. Other than that, though, what else is there? I know I recommended Stanford in college -2. They won by 8. And probably the worst beat on the entire card, potentially in almost the entire college basketball season, was SMU yesterday, which I gave a lean out to at -2. They ended up losing by 4. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it was absolutely brutal. SMU at home was up 26 with roughly 13 minutes left in the game and got outscored 40-12 in the last 13 minutes and ended up losing the game outright by 4. Brutal. If you had SMU, there's no real other way to put it. I mean, you're up 26 at home with 13 to go, and your team finds a way to lose outright when you're laying 2. Definitely not. That's definitely a game that would probably make somebody retire somewhere in the world. But either or, we'll look for a much better day today, and we're going to be looking at a player prop in today's NBA card. First of all, the NBA card really just not that great today. If you're just looking at matchups from a total and a spread perspective, a couple of games look interesting. The Rockets, of course, -10 is definitely a lean that I'll go to, but I find that, I don't know, there's something about that line that I think is a little bit off to me. I feel like Houston, I don't know why the hell they opened up at 8.5-point favorites. You figured they look at the line, you look at the Knicks, they should be favored by about 15. But the fact that it's 10, I'm a little bit confused by that. I know New York just won their last home game, but they played against a really underwhelming opponent. But overall, I'll lean to the Rockets on that one. But other than that, not really a big fan of anything on today's card. But there is one player prop that I do like based on value, and I think that this line is way too low. So for that reason, we're going to be giving it out, and we'll be on a matchup between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Atlanta Hawks. And for this game, we like Ja Morant over 7.5 assists, and that line is available on FanDuel at -124. Now, I know that line sounds a bit juicy, but I definitely just don't understand the line here. I think this line should be a lot higher, and for that reason, we're going to be giving it out. If you've looked at Morant lately, even though most of his teammates are injured in terms of big men, you have Jackson who's out, you also have Brandon Clark. If you've looked at Morant, though, he's played really well the last 2 games. He's played really well, and the third game he did pretty well in assists. So if you looked at Morant, he's had at least 9 assists in each of his last 3 games. He had 9 against Houston, he had 11 against Sacramento, and he had 14 against the Lakers. And now they end up playing Atlanta, who boasts one of the worst defenses in the entire league. Atlanta, even though they have won each of their last 2 games, they've given up at least 117 points in those 2 games. They've given up at least 117 each of their last 4 games. Really just not playing good defense. Plus, Atlanta loves to play at a fast pace. And I think you should see Morant have a lot of extra possessions to get assists because of the fact that Atlanta is going to be chucking up a ton of threes with a lot of time left on the shot clock. Morant, though, has been really good this season, of course, and now he's kind of losing some steam as Zion has completely turned the league upside down. But he's still a very solid point guard, and I still think that he should be able to put together a nice performance in this game against one of the worst defenders in the entire league. If you're not aware of this, there are 390 defenders who qualify for defensive plus-minus in the NBA. So there's 390. Trae Young ranks 390th, and he is the worst defender in the entire league in terms of defensive plus-minus by over a point. He's absolutely abysmal defensively. I know that he can shoot really well from the outside, and I get it. But defensively, he is absolutely abysmal. And I would not be surprised to see Trae Young be matched up on maybe Melton. And if I was the Grizzlies, I would just run pick and roll with with him all day and just force Morant onto Young and just see how Young gets embarrassed, because I just think Morant's going to do whatever he wants. I do think that Atlanta, even though their projected lineup could vary, right now it's projected to have Collins and Fernando at the power forward and center spot, but they have moved Hunter into the power forward spot as well, and if they end up doing that, this game should be a lot higher scoring. The total itself, though, is at over 240, so you should see a ton of points, just based on the projections for the game itself. They're basically predicting that Memphis will score about 119 points in this game. So with 119 points, give or take, against one of the worst defenses, and you have a player who's had at least 9 assists in each of the last 3 games, I just think 7.5 for assists is way too low. This line probably should be around 8.5, potential. I'd say around 8.5, give or take. But if you've looked market-wide, there's actually a great deal. It's at minus 124 on FanDuel. It's at minus 148 on DraftKings. And it's also at minus 143 on Fox Bet. So you're getting a minimum of 18 cents of value on this play alone at the current line. Or 19 cents of value, I should say. So based on that, I really just think it's a no-brainer play. So the play that I once again for March 2nd is going to be on John Morant over 7.5 assists. And that line is available on FanDuel at minus 124. Now looking at the rest of the betting card, I already mentioned I'm leaning to Houston. There's no way that I really can't. Houston's small ball lineup is just really, really interesting. And teams in the regular season have had nightmares trying to stop it because of the fact that they only have about a 1-day maximum to prepare for it. New York just doesn't have the talent. They're going to try to go relatively big with Randall and Gibson, but I already know both of them are going to be too slow to cover anybody on the perimeter. I think Tucker will hit a couple threes. Covington will hit a couple threes. Covington defensively has been an absolute monster. So is Tucker. I just don't think New York's going to get enough offense to actually score. I know that Harden went off against the Knicks the last meeting they had. Knicks ended up covering that spread, but that was because Westbrook did not play. Both of them are expected to play in this game. I think this game could turn ugly. At the end of the day, though, I think 10's a little bit questionable as a line. I'll have to lean Houston, but it would not surprise me to see if the Knicks cover through the back door, but that just remains to be seen. Other than that, really just not much to talk about in terms of the NBA. I'm going to lean to Dallas minus 6.5 against Chicago. I might have a little bit of money on that, maybe on the first half under, just based on the fact that Zach LaVine is doubtful, and LaVine is the best offensive player that the Bulls have by a wide margin, and he's also one of the worst defenders on the entire team. So with him out of the lineup, you should see fewer points. Doncic is expected to be back in the lineup, but at the same point, Porzingis is out, so that I expect Dallas' offense to struggle a little bit more. Seth Curry is also questionable. He's been really solid lately as a three-point shooter, and if he's unable to go, that definitely takes away one of Dallas' weapons from behind the arc. But at the end of the day, it's mostly just fading Chicago. For some reason, they still have Kobe White coming off the bench. I don't understand that at all. But right now, your projected lineup is Satoransky, Arcidiacono, Shaquille Harrison, Thaddeus Young, and Wendell Carter Jr. Yeah, that team's not going to score many points. I would lean to maybe the first half team total under, maybe the full game team total under for Chicago. I think White will play 30-something minutes. He's still a solid player offensively, but at the end of the day, that starting lineup is just brutal, and I don't think they're going to get much scoring. So the only way I can lean in that game is to the under, and I would lean to Chicago team total unders as well, and I'll lean to Dallas as well, just because of the fact that I think Chicago is just awful. I know that they ended up cashing that one time against the Wizards when we had money on the Wizards. If you've looked at their record recently, I don't think they've won a game besides that in the last 2 weeks. They're really just terrible. But just keep that in mind. Other than that, though, pretty much it for the NBA card. Now, looking at college basketball, really poor card. I mentioned how bad the NBA card I thought was today. College basketball card is even worse. You have two prime matchups. You have NC State versus Duke, which is important because NC State's still on the next four out. So they are still heavily on the bubble. And if they get a win here, they pretty much lock themselves into a tournament spot. Are they going to win? No. North Carolina State's not going to win. I'm not really sure how you lose to North Carolina. I know that North Carolina is finally healthy again, and it was in North Carolina. But at the end of the day, the Wolfpack needed that win, and I think Duke, especially after a couple of losses last week, I think Duke will just be pissed off, and I think Duke should come out very focused. NC State has been good offensively, but they already beat Duke by 20 at home. I think Duke's going to be pissed off. I'll lean to the over 153. You've seen some money, about 2 points worth of movement, so I'll lean to the over on that one. And the other play people want to talk about is between Texas Tech and Baylor. Baylor won the first game at Texas Tech. We actually had a play that a loser on that a couple months ago. But Baylor ended up losing to TCU on Saturday. They were up a decent amount before giving up a massive run to close the game and lose. Texas Tech, on the other hand, though, just lost to Texas at home. They were up, I believe it was 7 at the half, and got outscored double digits in the second half. Really not a good look. But I'm going to have to lean to the under. I know money's coming on the over from 128 to 130. There's no way I can bet the over in a Baylor-Texas Tech game. First game, barely had any points. You had some late scoring due to free throws and stuff in the first meeting. But at the end of the day, I would lean to the first half under. I think that game should be in the 50s, potentially low 60s at half. I think both teams will struggle offensively early on, and I think both teams should end up somewhere in the 60s or 50s. So for me, I'll lean to the under. No thoughts on the side, but I have to lean to the under in that one. But the play that I once again is going to be on Morant over 7.5 assists, and that one is available on FanDuel at minus 124. That's going to be the installment of Scott's Selections here for Monday, March 2nd, and good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.